So I just got back from America. I don't know if you guys saw the video from our road trip. I made like an hour-long video of us going around California, Arizona, and Nevada. I'm glad to be back, but I do miss America. I love America. It's such a cool place. And it's definitely not going to be the last time I go back. But one of the questions I got asked on that video and in my Instagram messages was, how did I find the Sony A7IV with the little 24mm compact lens versus the X100V, which I always take? I've got a bunch of objective points, which I'm just going to jump straight into now, and then I'll give you guys my thoughts at the end. If you don't really care about that, we can just jump straight in. So the very first point is this Fuji is just a lot more inconspicuous. I don't usually take it with this lens hood on. I usually just have it like that. Reason being is because it fits inside this Moment M/TW sling bag, which I really love. Thank you to those guys for sending it to me. Not just because of the size, because the A7IV doesn't really look big with that little 24mm compact lens. You could use the 35mm 2.8 as well. The concept is the same, but the point is it's not that big. But the A7IV has a quite loud shutter compared to a lot of other cameras, whereas the X100V is pretty much silent. So if I hold it right up to the mic here and take a photo, I don't even know if that'll come across in the video, but the shutter's basically completely silent. Let me put the camera on a tripod so I'm not walking around everywhere. So what that means for me is that I'm much more likely to take this camera into like a quiet restaurant, or somewhere where you're not going to want to make a lot of noise and make it obvious that you're taking photos. Because it's so silent and it has the tilt out screen, really easy for one-handed use. I found in a lot of situations I just set the aperture to like f8. I was just walking around with it with my thumb on the shutter button like this, so I could just walk up to people and take photos like this. Yeah, you get the point. It's really, really inconspicuous, and having the tilt screen is great. Versus the Sony's flip out screen, it just makes it a little bit more obvious that you're there to take photos. And when they hear the shutter flapping away, it's not ideal. Let me just get this out of the way. Now with the RAW files, the Sony ones are noticeably better. The files are just better. It has more dynamic range, more color depth, better in low light. But it's funny, the more I shoot with the X100, the more I shoot with the Sony, the less that kind of thing matters to me when I'm documenting life or travel and things like that. But it is important to note that the Sony RAW files are better than the Fuji RAW files. It just doesn't really matter because they're both awesome. Contrast to that though, the Fuji JPEGs are really, really amazing. And I do like the process of just taking a photo and then uploading it to Facebook or my phone or printing it or whatever without having to import it into Lightroom and play with it. It's kind of like the closest you can get to shooting film, not in terms of the quality or the image look, but the process of shooting film. For me, I really do enjoy the process of just shooting JPEG straight out of the camera. And it's just not something I would do with the Sony files. Now one thing to take into account is the Sony autofocus is miles ahead of the Fuji X100. I really only use this camera in single point focus because it just seems that that's what it's best at. But if you were the type of photographer that wants to shoot, say, street photography, but you want to shoot it wide open and get a shallow depth of field, the Sony is going to be much better for that kind of work. But this isn't really a video about street photography and shallow depth of field. It's a video about travel photography and which one of these I found better for myself. One thing to take into account is that the Sony does photo and video really, really well. So if you wanted to vlog your trip, if you just wanted to take one camera for photo and video, the Sony in this situation is going to be the clear, obvious winner. It would be the same if you're using a Canon R5 or something that does photo and video both. The Fuji does do video, the X100V, but it doesn't have stabilization, so you're going to have to use it on a gimbal or something like that, and it just makes it a little less easy to do the job. So hybrid is a big win for the Sony. Now one really big win for the Fuji is the size of it. Not so much the weight. I wasn't really bothered about the weight. It's more the size and how accessible it is and what bags it fits in. Whereas with the Fuji, I just take the little lens hood that you guys saw off, and then it quite easily, like I was saying before, fits inside this Moment MTW bag. Even with that bulky leather strap on, which I didn't really have on it, I can quite easily put it in there. The compact nature of the X100 makes it really, really nice to travel with. That's kind of an obvious one, but I think one thing people forget is that unless you have a really large sling, like one of the larger Peak Design slings, maybe the 5-litre one, even with the compact prime like what I had on it for the trip, it's still not going to fit in something like this. One thing I got asked about was the battery life. Now, I was quite shocked the first time I went to America with the Fuji X100, but it just kind of sold me on the fact that I don't really need to take more batteries, even though I did, because I don't want to have to be in a situation where I would run out. I took more photos with the Fuji and I never run out of one battery, even though I took a couple. The Sony battery is obviously better, but with this nature of travel photography, the amount of photos you're going to take, I don't think you're going to have to worry about battery with either of them. And they both charge with USB-C reasonably fast, so big plus there. Now, the last point I'm going to leave you guys on is the fun factor of using the camera, because I think this is the most important one, and I've found that the more you enjoy using the equipment you're going to use, the better the images you're going to take. Especially with travel photography, when you're going to places and you want to document how it feels to be there and the emotion of the place. When you're enjoying the gear you're using, you're going to be more inspired to take more photos, and just the whole process is more fun and more enjoyable. So I think that matters much more than image quality or sensor size or sharpness. One of the most common questions I get asked is, which camera should I buy? I'm thinking about this one or this one. I'm thinking about Canon or Nikon or Sony. Honestly, these days, it really doesn't matter. What I tell everybody if you're looking for a new camera is to go to a camera shop, hold one in your hands, have a play with them if you're able to, and whichever one you feel best about, whichever one makes you the most excited, buy that one, because they're all great and you're not going to have an issue with any of them. But to sum up this video, the easiest way I can put it is I took both cameras, I enjoyed using both cameras, but I took a lot more photos on the X100V, and they're the ones that are going to be printed in a book that I make just for myself. It's not going to be something I'm selling. So I hope that video helped you guys out, just a quick one, and hopefully it was to the point enough that you stuck around. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next video.